A talking cowboy, a lonely robot, an old man carrying a house with balloons. On paper, none of these should be enough to make millions of people cry, and yet somehow Pixar does it. So, what exactly is it doing? Because Pixar isn't just good at making emotional movies, they have mastered something much harder, making us see our own lives inside stories that have nothing to do with us. We aren't toys, we aren't robots, we aren't emotions living inside someone's head. But somehow, we see ourselves in all of them. And that's where Pixar's real storytelling genius begins. Because the secret isn't making us cry, the secret is making us care first. Let's start with Toy Story. On the surface, it's a movie about toys. But Pixar doesn't really ask us to care about toys. It asks us to care about Woody. Woody is Andy's favorite toy. He is the leader, he is important, and then Buzz Lightyear arrives. Suddenly, Woody isn't special anymore, and that's where the real story begins. Because Woody's problem isn't really Buzz, his problem is insecurity. He's terrified of being replaced, and that's something almost everyone understands. Maybe you have had a friend who found someone new, maybe someone younger replaced you at work, maybe you have watched someone else become better at something you thought you were good at. You don't need to be a toy to understand Woody. And Pixar keeps returning to this idea throughout the Toy Story series. In Toy Story 2, Woody discovers that he could become valuable again. But there's a catch. He could become part of a museum collection and live forever, or he could return to Andy and eventually be forgotten. Then Toy Story 3 takes that fear and pushes it to the natural conclusion. Andy is growing up. The toys aren't needed anymore. And suddenly the villain isn't a person, it's time. Because growing up means leaving things behind. Here's something Pixar understands extremely well. If you want an emotional moment to hurt, don't start with the emotion. Start with joy, start with curiosity, start with something small. Look at Wall-E. For much of the beginning, Wall-E barely speaks. He's just a little robot cleaning up an abandoned Earth. He collects random objects, he watches an old musical, he discovers things humans left behind. And he's lonely. But Pixar doesn't give us a long speech explaining his loneliness. Instead, we watch him experience it. Then Eve arrives. And suddenly, Wall-E has something he's never really had before. Something to connect with. And because we have already spent time watching Wall-E alone, that connection matters. Pixar understands that emotional impact often comes from contrast. The opening of Up is one of Pixar's most famous sequences. Carl meets Ellie. They fall in love, they dream about traveling to Paradise Falls. They grow old together, and then Ellie dies. Pixar doesn't tell us Carl really loved Ellie. It shows us a photograph, an empty chair, a house, a balloon, a lifetime of tiny moments. And then Carl spends the rest of the movie trying to complete the dream they never finished. At first, the house represents love, but eventually, it becomes something else. It becomes a prison. Carl thinks moving forward means abandoning Ellie, but the emotional truth of the movie is the opposite. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting someone, it means accepting that their place in your life can change. Take Ratatouille. The story is about a rat who wants to become a chef. It's ridiculous, it's funny, it's almost impossible.
What I say is true. Anyone can cook. But only the fears can be
But then comes one of the movie's most powerful moments. Ant and Ego, the harsh food critic, tastes Remy's ratatouille, and suddenly he's a child again. He's transported back to his mother's kitchen. The food doesn't just taste good, it brings back a memory. And notice what Pixar does. It simply shows us one bite, one memory, one emotional transformation, and suddenly the rat isn't the important part anymore. The food isn't even the important part. The memory is. That's Pixar's trick. But perhaps Pixar's most direct attempt to understand emotion is Inside Out. The premise is brilliant. What if our emotions were characters? Joy, sadness, anger, fear, disgust. At first, joy believes something most of us have believed at some point. Sadness is a problem. And for a while, that seems reasonable. But then Riley's life falls apart. Her family moves, her friendships change, her identity starts to shift. And Joy realizes something. She can't solve everything by making Riley happy. Because sadness isn't the enemy. Sadness allows Riley to communicate that she needs help. Sadness allows her parents to understand her. Sadness allows people to connect. And this is where Inside Out becomes more than a children's movie. A healthy emotional life isn't about being happy all the time. It's about being able to feel everything. And then we get Coco. At first, it seems like a movie about music. Miguel wants to become a musician. His family hates music. He wants to understand why. But underneath all of that is a much bigger fear. What happens when someone you love is forgotten? In the world of Coco, the dead can continue to exist through memory. But when nobody remembers you, you disappear. And suddenly the movie isn't really about death. It's about being remembered. Think about how powerful that is. Most of us won't relate to being trapped in the land of the dead, but almost everyone understands the desire to matter to someone. To leave something behind, to know that your life meant something. And Coco turns that fear into a fantasy world. Which brings us back to Pixar's greatest storytelling technique. Take something impossible and use it to talk about something completely real. Finding Nemo does something similar. Merlin loves Nemo, but after losing his wife and most of his children, that love becomes mixed with fear. Merlin isn't just protecting Nemo, he's trying to prevent the world from hurting him, and eventually that becomes the problem. Because loving someone doesn't mean controlling everything that happens to them. Sometimes loving someone means trusting them enough to let them go. And Dory helps Merlin understand that. Her famous philosophy isn't really about forgetting, it's about continuing. Because if fear controls every decision, you may protect yourself from pain, but you also protect yourself from life. People often talk about the Pixar formula, but I don't think that's what makes Pixar work. Because if emotional storytelling were that easy, everyone would be doing that. The real secret is deeper. Pixar understands that emotion comes from meaning. A house isn't just a house. In Up, it's a lifetime. A toy isn't just a toy. In Toy Story, it's childhood. A meal isn't just a meal. In Ratatouille, it's a memory. A song isn't just a song. In Coco, it's identity and family. A robot isn't just a robot. In WALL-E, it's loneliness and connection. And sadness isn't just sadness. In Inside Out, it's a part of being human. Pixar gives ordinary things emotional meaning. And once something has meaning, even the smallest action can break your heart. Maybe that's why Pixar movies stay with us. Not because they are animated, not because they are funny, not even because they make us cry, They stay with us because underneath all the fantasy, they remind us of things we already know. And maybe that's why Pixar mastered emotional storytelling. Because Pixar never really learned how to make us cry. It learned how to make us care. And once you care, the tears take care of themselves.
Ooh.